Alexandria Ocasio Cortez may have just gotten a serious and legitimate contender for the Democratic primary in her district. Dare I say, of all of the dozen or so people who are seeking to challenge her for her seat, this seems like the most legitimate claim, like somebody who might actually be able to win. Now, I will admit, this is Michelle Caruso Cabrera. I don't know a whole lot about her. I've read a little bit and I'll show you, but it looks really promising, like a moderate, sane individual with real world experience might actually be taking on AOC. Michelle Caruso Cabrera is a former CNBC anchor, meaning she's probably got decently high profile friends who can help her with press and relations. And she's got a decent following on Twitter. And a lot of people in media do follow her. This is not some fly-by-night candidate who popped out of the woodwork saying, I want to challenge AOC because everyone doesn't like her. This is somebody who might actually win. Let me read a little bit about the story, and I want to show you some of who this woman is. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, but dare I say, I'd love to see a strong, sane, moderate, Democratic alternative to the Republican Party because we need competition in our political ideas. AOC represents a far fringe, kind of frantic and narcissistic personality that doesn't really represent a whole lot. I don't even know what it's like. AOC kind of just flip-flops around all over the place with more and more extreme rhetoric. But let me slow down. Let's read a little bit about what's going on here, because this is breaking news like 12 minutes ago. I'm seeing this. CNBC reports. Might I add, CNBC reporting potential conflict of interest, but hey. Former longtime CNBC correspondent and anchor Michelle Caruso Cabrera has launched a challenge in the Democratic primary against freshman firebrand rep Alexandria Ocasio Cortez of New York. Caruso Cabrera, who became a CNBC contributor when she left the network in September 2018, served as a member of the board of directors for financial services firm Beneficient. She will take leave from her role as CNBC contributor for the duration of the campaign, a CNBC spokesperson said. Okay, so that's literally them saying we're severing ties because she's going political. According to a filing late Monday, she will run as a Democrat in that party's primary in the 14th district. Caruso Cabrera is known to be a skeptic of government and a proponent of free markets. Heavens! That's the Democrat going up against AOC, the overt Democratic socialist who wants more government, a massive government. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on. AOC both simultaneously claimed the Green New Deal would not be a massive government takeover and that, yes, it would. Pick whichever one you think was honest. But as most of us really do know, what she's calling for is a massive government takeover. So here we have, I guess what you'd call an old school sane Democrat who doesn't think that's appropriate. And, you know, you could have people on the left who don't believe in socialism. Apparently, this is the case. In 2010, she published a book called You Know I'm Right. More prosperity, less government. Oof. She has been a registered Democrat for several years. You know, look, I'm making a bunch of assumptions about this lady, but I watched her sizzle reel from CNBC, and she was seemingly in some international conflict situations as an international correspondent. Immediately, I have tremendous respect for her. I assume most people who have experienced combat, it's one of the reasons why I think military service is very important for the president. I think most people who have experienced this stuff are going to be hardened, steadfast. They're less prone to panic and taking unnecessary risks. They're going to be smarter and calmer. So I see that. I'm like, wait a minute. You mean you're a moderate? Maybe not a moderate, but more prosperity, less government. I like how that sounds. And you've got international experience, real world experience. Oh, I like it. Let's read more. I am the daughter and granddaughter of working class Italian and Cuban immigrants, Caruso Cabrera said in a statement. I am so lucky to have had such a wonderful career, and I want everybody to have the opportunity that I've had. That's why I'm running. I like how that sounds. Caruso Cabrera spent more than 20 years with CNBC, serving as a co-anchor for Power Lunch and as the network's chief international correspondent. Ocasio-Cortez has emerged as one of the most influential voices on the American left, gaining national attention for her outspoken support for policies such as Medicare for All and her endorsement of Democratic Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders, run for the Democratic presidential nomination. President Donald Trump has targeted her in tweets and speeches. She stunned the Democratic mainstream when she beat Joe Crowley, and then, everything after that we get, all right? About a dozen candidates have already filed to run for the 14th district seat, which encompasses parts of the Bronx and Queens. This is going to be one of the biggest and most important elections in the country. It is ridiculous, but this congressional seat, The desire from so many to remove Ocasio Cortez from Congress is kind of remarkable. It's one congressional seat, but you've got, what does it say, a dozen candidates running in this district. Now you have Michelle. So this is her website. Not super familiar with her. There's not a whole lot on her website. She has an about section where she tells her stories, saying, after graduating from college, she worked at Univision, where she worked as a producer. She's fluent in Spanish. So all these things are interesting. But I'll read a little bit more, and then I'll show you something really fascinating. Her book. It looks like she might be a Reagan Democrat, which I find really fascinating. So actually, let me just do that. So her site doesn't have too much, but this is why I think she's a legitimate contender. She is high profile in the New York area with friends in journalism, which means, well, presumably she has friends in journalism, but that means that she has a real shot at getting press attention. And she's going to be, look, I'm sorry, man. If it comes to the point where Michelle Caruso Cabrera is debating AOC, I believe she will mop the floor with Ocasio Cortez single-handedly. This is someone with real international experience working as a journalist. Now, not all journalists are these, layabouts in New York City. This woman, there's footage of her like putting on a gas mask in like what appears to be like the Middle East. Immediately, I'm like, thank you. Teach these children who had snowplow parents who have never experienced hardship what real leadership is. Now, I'm jumping the gun, I know. I don't know a whole lot about Michelle. She doesn't have a lot of issues put up on her website yet. But look at this book, and I think it speaks a bit to what her character is and why I think this might actually work very, very well for people in New York. This is on Amazon. It's not a news story. It says, I'm right. More prosperity, less government. The description reads, as the popular anchor of CNBC's daily news show Power Lunch, Michelle Caruso Cabrera puts a new spin on conservatism. Now in I'm Right, Caruso Cabrera presents a modern and smart approach to correcting the economic woes of the nation. Denouncing the hypocrites, she calls out the radicals on both sides of the spectrum who have frustrated voters and left fiscally conservative but socially liberal Americans feeling like a people without a party. Dare I say, she sounds like the politically homeless. I'm loving it. Caruso Cabrera maintains that by focusing on socially invasive policies, our country has lost its course. The answer is less government, not more. Less spending, not more. And getting the government to stay out of our pocketbooks and out of our private lives. That sounds awfully libertarian. Like, who can disagree, right? Who disagrees, right? I'm Right addresses the problems created by government overreach and speaks to the minds and hearts of nostalgic Republicans, those who believe in the strategy and approach used by Ronald Reagan. But it will also appeal to Clinton-era Democrats frustrated by the current level of exorbitant spending and excessive interference in the economy. Citing faults with both political parties, here, Caruso Cabrera puts a magnifying glass on government structure, healthcare, and education, underscoring how we have gone wrong and, more important, where we need to go for a secure and prosperous future. Let's talk about the weird reality we're in. I remember when there was this idea of the fiscally conservative, socially liberal types in terms of the Democratic Party. There was a concern over too much spending. Many of those people would go and vote for Republicans, even though against their social issues, right? We then saw there was kind of that was kind of it. That was a very libertarian-esque kind of era a long time ago. I mean, this book, I think, is from 2010, I believe. I don't know if it's up, but you had a lot of people who felt like the Democrats were spending too much, but the Republicans, while they were, saying we need smaller government, spend less, they weren't as interested in freedom when it came to individual rights. Now, this was mostly due to the party's more religious moral authoritarianism, but that was a while ago. Things have started to change, notably with the Trump insurrection. You now have high-profile, more libertarian religious people who, like Ben Shapiro says, he takes a libertarian approach to his religion. It's very, very different to the kind of moral grandstanding we saw in the 90s and the 2000s. So there were a lot of people who felt we shouldn't be demanding socialist remedies to these problems, but we did want to see certain civil rights. Now it seems like we have people on the left who are advocating for civil rights, but are overt socialists. And it's not even about civil rights anymore. They've taken it way off the edge. You now have a lot of these socially liberal, fiscally conservative individuals more in line with Trump, even though the debt is going up under Trump. I think, I did a podcast the other day with Jack Murphy, and he mentioned something really important about what made it easy for him to join the Republican Party was that many key social issues came off the table when Republicans started agreeing with certain things like, pot legalization or same-sex marriage issues. Now, all of a sudden, that those hard barriers weren't there. I don't know exactly what Michelle Caruso Cabrera wants to do or plans to do or what her policies are. It seems like she's going to be at least better than AOC, but it also seems like she's got around 71,000 followers on Twitter. She's got connections, and so I think she'll be able to actually compete with the powerful media message that AOC is going to push, having millions of followers. We will see what the people of New York decide, but I will tell you this. In my opinion, AOC has been a grandstander, a narcissistic, arrogant individual who is more interested in her celebrity than she actually is in doing the right thing. I think she's young and naive, but she is very, very popular. I think she flip-flops. I'd like to see a sane, rational center or center-left liberals, actually bringing up real reasons, real issues to combat, say, like the Republican Party. I disagree with you. Here's what I propose. The problem is right now, none of them, the Democrats don't do that. They don't actually offer up what they think would be a better alternative to what a lot of what the Republicans offer. So instead, we get orange man bad. If she can stay off the orange man bad path and actually talk about what she plans to do in terms of moderate policy and helping, New York City and her district get jobs, I think she can win, especially considering she's got a following. We'll see what happens. 71,000 followers is nothing compared to AOC's 6 million, but I think this might be a real contender. And keep in mind, this is a primary battle. Very few people will turn out. So we'll see. Stick around. Next segment's coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.